don't even know where to start this video off, to be honest. This week of traveling was probably the craziest week of traveling I've ever had in like my entire career of traveling. To say the least, I put diesel in a gas car.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
And that was the smallest thing out of everything that we fucked up this week. So the story all started back in Sicily. We got there at like 12 o'clock and we decided, since we had the full day, we were gonna go walk around. Jen wanted to go see a beach, so we just walked down the boardwalk or whatever you want to call it, and it's really pretty down there. And then Jen was like, we want to go to a sandy beach and swim. So we decided to get some bus passes, hop on the bus, not knowing really where it took us, but we were just gonna take it. Took the bus, got off at what looked like the last stop, decided that we are going to walk the rest of the way to the beach because it didn't seem that far, and our phones weren't really working there. But we started walking, ended up being about like 8 miles, so that was fun. We walked like a whole 8 miles to get to this beach. Oh, and by the way, the walk was not like a nice little boardwalk. We walked through like an abandoned city where all the cruises come in, and it was just a disaster. We were literally walking on the side of a freeway. There was no tourists. I don't think people typically walk there. I wouldn't recommend walking there. It was just a shit show. And we walked down, got to the beach, and we're like, okay, we can see the beach, we see the sand. First thing that we do is we pass a trailer park. We're like, okay, this probably is not the best beach. Keep walking down, and we're like, maybe there'll be hope, maybe there's some sandy beach. We get to the shoreline, and the shoreline, it was covered in glass, like trash. It was gross. It was not a beach. I don't know what you would call that. The water was not clean. It was definitely not somewhere that I would go and hang out. And so we were just kind of disappointed at that point, and we're like, okay, well, how the hell are we gonna get back? There's no taxis here, or there is taxis here, but there's no Uber, there's no Lyft, and the taxis aren't labeled taxis. They're just white cars that, there's so many white cars like that. They don't have a label on it that says taxi, so how are you supposed to know? So we ended up finding this random bus stop and sitting at it, and we're like, is the bus even gonna come? Because everything around us literally looks abandoned. And we waited there, about to get up and leave, and then the bus comes. I was like, where does this bus take us? Jen's like, I don't know, but we're getting on. So we hopped on the bus, just took it back to the stop that we originally got off. And once we got off there, then we're like, okay, I don't know when the next bus comes. We were looking online to try and see if we can find anything. And we didn't really get any information. It didn't make sense because it was all in Italian. So then we just decided to walk a little bit because we thought the bus stop was over on the other side of the road where we were. And somebody yells taxi, and I was like, yes, please get in this freaking taxi right now. Let's go. Got in the taxi, just gave him the directions, and he took us back to the bed and breakfast. And that was the end of that day. Like, we walked a total of 8 miles. It was an exhausting day. The next day, we actually ended up just hanging out in the room and trying to book a place somewhere. We didn't know where we were going next, but that was kind of like our research day, editing and doing all that stuff. And we decided that we were gonna go to Greece for a month and stay on one of the islands. We picked Crete because it was the biggest island and it looked like there was a decent amount of stuff to do because we didn't want there to not be a lot of stuff. So we're searching around, just digging for an Airbnb, and we finally find one for an entire month, and it was a decent price. So we booked the Airbnb, and after that, then it was time to look for a flight because now we know where we're going. And for some odd reason, the flights the day that we were flying were like the most expensive, and the prices were just crazy expensive. It's like we could fly to London for $70, but to try and fly to Crete, it was like $600. Like, it made no sense. So we searched, found the other airport. The other airport actually was a little bit cheaper, but it wasn't like too much cheaper. It was still like ridiculously expensive and just such a waste of money. And the other airport though was like an hour or something away. So the only flight also was at 7 a.m. So we ended up booking that flight to Athens, only booking one because if we booked it both ways, it'd be a lot more expensive. Booked the first flight, then we had to find a taxi to take us at like 4 a.m. to the airport. We had to drive over there and get there earlier. So we had to wake up at like 4 the next day. We didn't even sleep that night before because we were trying to get all of the shuttle and both flights booked because we booked the other flight from Athens to Crete, which booking one flight was a lot cheaper than trying to book both flights together, which is good and bad because if you miss that second flight, then you don't get your money back for that. But anyways, we got there waiting for our flight and it was delayed for 2 hours. And this is when it just started going even worse. And we waited for 2 hours, got on the plane, and I looked at my phone to see like what time it was in Athens to make sure there wasn't a time difference. And of course, there's a time difference, and they're an hour ahead of Italy. So then we're like looking. We fly there. It's a short flight, and we get there, and I like look at the time. And by the time we landed, our plane was boarding. So we had to go get our bags and recheck them to our next flight. So we're running to go get our bags. Luckily, they came out pretty quick. Then we're sprinting to go to the gate. Just so happens to be that this is like the biggest airport out of like all the airports that we've been to this whole trip. And we just were sprinting with all of our bags, sweating, couldn't find the gate, running back and forth, and not a lot of people speak good English, and we didn't know where the airline was. Then we finally get there, and we were like, hey, can we check our bags? Like they're calling us on the intercom at this point, like final call, and we're like, shit. So we give him, he's like, yeah, you definitely missed it, like the gate's closed. And we're like, shit. So can we get another ticket? And we tried telling him that we got these 2 tickets, and then our flight was delayed. Then he's like, no. He's like, go over there and get another ticket. Walk over there. Luckily, it was only like 90 euros, which, I mean, is still pretty expensive, but in terms speaking, it was decently cheap, and he gave us bags checked for free, which we had to pay on the last one, so that would have sucked if we had to pay for those as well. Also, the flight wasn't until 6:30, and it was only like 1. So we had like a good 5.5 hour wait. So now we're just like, okay, we'll just go get some food, hang out a little bit, waited for the flight. Finally got on the flight, boarded it, everything was good, except it was just, we just dumped another $200 into the next flight that we already paid for, and now we don't get any money back from that flight. After we landed, we had to book a taxi, and it was 80 euros to drive an hour all the way into Kismos. And this is where the story just takes a whole nother twist. So now we're down from the tickets, the taxi, Airbnb, and there's just so many things that add up. But we get to the Airbnb just ready to like crash, and because we looked at it and the photos looked amazing. We just can't wait to have an entire month here and relax and get everything situated because we want to come here and work a little bit more. That was one of the main reasons that we did come to Crete, and it's like the off season, so it's definitely cheaper. And we pull up to the Airbnb, and we're driving through like this already doesn't really look like a great area. I mean, it's dark outside, but from what I'm seeing, it does not look good. We get there and we go inside, and we're like, okay, this is nice. We're just telling the owner and stuff. And at this point, we're just like, okay, we're like exhausted. We just want to pass out. Like, there's not really much we could do at night. Everything is like a couple hours away if we want to go. So we decided to go to the market, get some food, and then after we got some food, we're walking down the street, and we're like, this is terrible. Like, this is worse than Sicily. This is worse than anything. Like, this is definitely not where we're gonna stay here. I wouldn't even want to film here. Like, and also the photos in the Airbnb, the background was white, not brown. And like, it was totally changed when we got there. So I was like, okay, well that really sucks, because even if I was gonna film on like a white backdrop, now it's brown. But that's just like a minor thing. So I always can go anywhere else, but being that there's construction going on, there's just 1,000 things wrong with it. So we decided that the next morning we were just gonna rent a car, get up early, and then go drive around and search other Airbnbs and see if we can book another one while we're there, hoping that we can get our money back when we cancel it. So find a car, and this is when it gets fun. The only car that they had to rent was manual, which I haven't drove a manual in a while. I haven't owned a manual. Like, my brother had one and I drove his. I know how to drive it. I understand the concept. It's not hard, but it's just a matter of getting used to each car because they're all a little bit different. She's like, you know how to drive manual? I was like, yeah, of course I know. I'm not the greatest, but I know how to drive it. And so when she was telling me what kind of gas to put in, she said unleaded diesel. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of weird because usually it's either diesel or unleaded. It's not unleaded diesel. And we just start driving, and of course, there's no gas in the car, so we had to go get gas, pull up to the first gas station, and there's only diesel there. So I'm like assuming, okay, maybe that's just like their type of gas they have here. And they put in the gas, and then we just go, and like, I mean, I'm like rusty at manual. It's like we get in there and I'm like, it's like just going back and forth, almost stalling at everything. It was terrible. And we would like pull out of a parking lot and just skirt out, and like everyone would just look at us, and we're like, okay, let's just keep going. So then we drive, we only put 10 euros in, which didn't get us much in this little piece of shit car. And then we arrived to another gas station, and this is where I'm like, okay, let's fill it up and let's see what this car actually takes, because I still have no idea. It ran fine, and so I assumed that diesel was fine for it. I open the gas thing because the other one was, they did it for you, and this one was self-service. And I look at the gas thing, and it's like, unleaded fuel only. So I was like,
Nice.
Okay, but we definitely just put diesel in the car. And so, I mean, it ran fine. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, the car hasn't blown up on us, and it's still running. So let's just fill this bad boy up with unleaded. Filled it up. Another like $70 or $60 we put in the tank. It's expensive for gas here. I mean, it's they charge by like the liter. And after that, we just headed down, and we're driving for like 2 or so more hours. We looked at 3 Airbnbs. They all sucked. Same thing. They were a little bit better than the last one, but it's like, this is still not what we're looking for, especially if we're gonna spend a month here. Like, I mean, we're not that picky. Like, it doesn't have to be the nicest place or like a 5-star hotel, but at least have like basics of like a table that I can edit, something I can shoot on. I was really looking for a balcony because I thought that would be really cool to film some videos on. And there's more Airbnbs that are cheaper than like the ones that we're looking at right now. So we drove another like 40 minutes. We're almost not about to drive to Herculogne. I'm totally pronouncing that wrong. They say it weird here, but that's how it's. Herculogne, whatever you say. It looks like Herculogne, it's pronounced Herculogne. I don't know. But we decided that we're gonna drive another hour to get there. Drove there, and we messaged one of the Airbnbs. We're like, hey, can we come check it out? We're looking for a new Airbnb, and we're staying here for a month. And they're like, yeah, of course. Super nice. And this is when we got to this Airbnb. And this Airbnb that we're in right now and that I'm filming in is amazing. So we totally lucked out, and we're like, okay, yes, this is great. Like, we want this Airbnb, like, we're going. But the thing is, we have a rental car that we have to return in Kissamos, which is 3 hours away, and we need to get another rental car here, and either Jen has to follow me, or I don't know what else we're gonna do. And so they're like, okay, let me help you. Super helpful. They called somebody, got us like a crazy good deal, like 550 euros for the entire month of a 2018 car. And I was like, okay, that's a good deal. We're taking that. We need a car. You can't really get around with that. And so we decided that we're gonna like get the house, and we drove all the way back to Kissamos. And then once we got to Kissamos, we packed up our bags. We told our Airbnb that, hey, this isn't working for us. This is not what we're looking for. Like, can you meet us and talk to us? Ended up talking to him, and he's like, okay, yeah, we'll do a refund, just pay for the night. And I was like, yeah, totally, like, we'll pay for the nights that we were there and like clean it up, or the cleaning fee. And we did, and I was totally fine paying that because that's what we stayed. And so then we ended up driving to another city and dropping off the car, because the guy that got us the rental car called the company and was like, hey, they need to drop this car off. So we dropped off the car to them. Then he brought the other car to us, and we loaded up all of our stuff in there. Happy that we just got a great Airbnb, and the guy agreed that he was gonna refund us the money, and everything just went from like completely shit to like really good, and we're like just pumped. Start driving, Jen's navigating me, and of course, we're driving, and I'm like, she's like, okay, you missed a turn, so we're gonna turn off on a road and then just flip a U. The car doesn't make it all the way around, and so I'm like, okay, I need to reverse now. Try and put the car in reverse. It doesn't go in reverse.